Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quick, Nathan?
Yeah, sure. My name's Nathan Richards. I am, like I said, on the JCSP program right now at the CFC College. So I took Dr. Beebe's comp studies course, which is design. And so this has really been, I've only been messing around with this for a little bit, just getting into design thinking. And as he said, it's like the Canadian Forces is so averse to this. At lower levels, at the tactical level for sure. So it's really interesting to get involved with that. But on the IA side, I've been following that for a little bit longer. And like I said, when I get to my bit of this presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, super excited to be here.
Good. Guillaume, Noiseux-Lauze, Gus. I'm an engineer by trade. Portfolio manager, let's say, to make it quick, in my day-to-day job, real property portfolio manager, let's say, in my day-to-day job. So first disclaimer, as you suggested, Philip, I'm not an expert in AI. I'm trying to be as proficient with it as a user. I'm not a developer at all. I'm not interested too much in how the black box works. I leave that to smarter folks with different background. What I'm interested in is how can I leverage the capability in my day-to-day life and obviously in my work, and especially in design and complex problem. How to approach complex problem. So the first thing I like to do is ask you folks, if anyone wants to give me a rough estimation on what are those large language model that we hear about, GPT-4, BARD. What are those doing? What's the big deal? Anyone has an idea, except Nathan, obviously, what it does, what it is? Best shot. Or what it's not, maybe. All right. I'm going to I want to keep it short here to put more time in demoing what I've been using it for. So what it's not, a lot of people thinks it's more of a, when there was a transition between physical book, like where Nathan is, right? People thought at first in the 90s that internet was just a public library open to anyone. That's how they saw internet. Right? They couldn't imagine Amazon coming out of it or whatever else, right? Like it was. So a lot of people wrongly see those large language model, like ChatGPT-4. I'm gonna use a lot ChatGPT as a proxy for all the existing large language model. There's more than just ChatGPT. There are open source ones that are great. Their closest competition, let's say, would be BARD with Google. But I'm going to use ChatGPT as a proxy for everything that is a large language model. So the large language model is not a way to access the internet library of knowledge. Okay, it's not that. It's not a smarter Google search. Okay. It's closer to a reasoning engine than it is to a knowledge library. So when Nathan speaks, I think because I read your paper, Nathan, so I'm not sure which part of your paper you're going to address, but there's this, those language models, sometimes they are creative and sometimes too creative for their users, meaning we call it hallucination. But in the end, making stuff up is what being creative is, right? So you should see the large language model as more of a reasoning engine than a knowledge library. So it's not as good as at extracting knowledge and giving you accurate answer, but it's really good at reasoning, closer to what a human is. So it's closer to how we think. So those large language models are based off a neural network, and they are different application of the neural network. The transformers and the large language model, the one that are used, stable diffusion that it's more geared toward artists and not artists, but image making and stuff like that. So they use another type of neural network, but the basic technology is they try to replicate how our brain works. Okay. So now enough me talking. I want to move towards a demonstration, a small demonstration that's going to be interactive. So Philip, I call them designer archetypes. It's not. I'm not sure if the intent was to be designer archetype, but these are the archetype that AOD developed, specifically Mr. Michele. I don't want to butcher his last name, but the co-president of AOD. So this is like a synthesis. Or should I? I'm just zoom out a little so you can read on the. Can you read well? Or yeah, you can read the full screen. Okay. So these are like these were produced, but they were way larger. Okay. So the first thing I want you to appreciate is the quality that ChatGPT has to summarize. I'm going to just show you one. Okay. The archetype structured creative. Okay. You see so a lot of the brain power was put into creating this. But I simply ask ChatGPT to synthesize that information. So it's really good at synthesizing. So back to my presentation. So this is the synthesis of the 10 let's say the designer archetype, and I thought it would be fun for the audience to create a questionnaire, okay, so that you could identify to one of them. Okay, so the next 4 slides are going to be question. I just ask you to write down your answer. It's quite simple. And based on your answer, I'm going to be able to do a live demo with you to show you what type you are. Okay, so the first point to remember, it's ChatGPT, and you probably know that it's really good at synthesizing. Okay, and the other thing too is you can ask them to create a questionnaire. So I asked them to do that. So here you go. Which one are you? Are we all good? Good. I'm going to read it for the podcaster. All right. How do you approach problem solving? I thrive in the chaos and anticipate problem based on outside forces. I challenge the status quo, relying on my knowledge and critical thinking. I use creative and structured problem solving approaches. I use my unique outsider perspective to see things differently. I ask probing questions and seek multiple perspectives. Good. Anyone need a bit more time? We're good? What? Sorry. What describe your approach to learning and growing? I adapt to rapidly changing environments. I am comfortable with a lack of control. I can adapt and reconfigure to meet new challenges. I engage in rigorous self-reflection and critique. I engage in critical thinking to support strategic decision making. Good. All right. Which statement best describes how you interact with others? Well, I prototype and embrace incremental change. I listen attentively and collaborate empathically. I use structure, creativity to drive team innovation. I synthesize perspective to build relationship and adaptability. I collaborate broadly, challenging norms and envisioning future scenario. Okay. So now there's a chat here. There you go, chat. So please write your answer in the chat, please. Okay. And I'm going to show you live how to. No, this is not the right one. Well, there you go. So there, you can see here. Okay. Here's a list of 10 archetype. I ask him, create a questionnaire, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now I'm going to go here. I'm going to start with Nathan. It might be just easier, Nathan, if you just tell it. Nathan answered. One was
Bravo.
Bravo.
The rest are Charlie.
Charlie. Okay.
Structured, creative, I bet.
And then the Thomas.
I did 1C, 2A, 3D, 4D.
3D.
Yep. 4D as well.
4D. Okay. And then, just give me a sec. It's always live demos, your risk and peril. Now the next one, I'll go with Andrew. Oh, there's one. Okay, I'll start with those two. Okay, and then I'll when Nathan speak, I'll do the rest of them. Whoops, sorry. Okay. So for Nathan, the most, so that's easy. Okay. For Thomas, reflective Nathan, and you have a bit of a chaos technician in you. Okay. But I'm not going to go too deep now, but see how far you can go. Okay. So I'm going to ask the crowd, please find me a problem statement, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT to which one would you give it and why? Just a simple one. So I'm going to start typing for the following problem, who would be best to handle to tackle it, let's say tackle it, and why? I just need a problem statement. Anything like I can ask GPT to create the problem statement if you want.
I just did. That's what it gave me.
So sorry. Okay, it's in the chat. Sorry. So Nathan is cheating. He's using AI on AI. It's like, okay. How? Okay, I'll use it. It's a bit complex, and the prompt is not great. My prompt, but I'm gonna try it anyway. You just copy and paste this thing. Or else I'm just gonna use okay. So between Nathan and Thomas, who is most suited to tackle this challenge? And why? Okay. Yeah, that's the other would involve leveraging the strength. Okay, yeah, that's okay. On the other hand, Thomas. So I'm going to read one, like Nathan's, no, I'm going to use Thomas. On the other hand, Thomas most frequently reflect this archetype emphasis on self. Although Thomas may not align directly with creative design thinking, his inclination toward introspection and can still be valuable in the integration process. As a reflexive mentor, Thomas can engage in critical reflection on current practice. Well, so here you see, again, live demo. In summary, they both can contribute. Okay, so that's a non-answer, basically. That's all right. Please choose one. Choose one and debate and provide strongest argument as to why. So the thing is, it's not like a machine. You can bend its will. So the first answer that it gives, well, so Nathan, you won that challenge. but what is cool here, right, is that I got a non-answer first, and you can force them to give you force it, not them, to give you an answer. And then you can say, okay, provide the counter argument for Thomas. So what I'm doing right now at the same time is I'm showing you like red teaming with your computer alone, a bit like BB said at the beginning. Now you can co-design alone. In summary, okay. And then you can say, based on our whole discussion, you can ask them to come up with a choice, right? I'm not going to do it. It's not going to bring more value. But the point is you ask them argument for, you can then ask me the counter argument, and then you can bring, okay, that's a good example. All right. You are an expert in, let's say, psychology. Based on our discussion, what would be, and sorry for the typo, there's some French making there, based on it, what would be your insights? See, like left field completely, right? Like you bring you can ask him. No, okay, yeah. So now you get the perspective from a psychologist. You know what I mean? Like, so you can go in all sorts of direction. Okay. So the other example I wanted to show you is an example of so far, and any, because I'm speaking alone, and I don't want to be too boring. So any question, feedback so far, or is there anything that I said that is you didn't? Any feedback so far? Questions?
Yeah, I think the power of this IA is the power of prototyping and ideation. Like it's not like entering something into a black box. You can constantly discuss with it and give better feedback and develop your prompts to a higher level, to the point where it takes on a completely different train of thought. And that's the power of this. So I think you explained it really well.
Yeah. Okay. So you said this is one point I wanted to bring. You said the word prompt engineer. Okay, so prompt engineering is basically how do you ask question to this machine? Okay, and weirdly enough, there is the folks that are going to be the better equipped to benefit the most out of the GPT-4 are people that are really good with the human cognitive apparatus, because it's mimicking it. So it's not like the prompt engineer are probably going to be like the social scientist, like the historian, because it's more. It's not natural language. And let's say just a psychologist, what are they doing when you have a session, right? They don't give you tip. They don't give you should do that, correct? Like psychologists typically will ask you questions, right? So that you go on to your journey. And they have really different ways of getting you to think about stuff, indirectly, right? So basically, a psychologist that is seeing a patient that is doing a session, it's exactly the same process here. What I'm probing, I'm asking, I'm reformulating, right? So the prompt engineering is let's say the science and the art of asking not only the right question, but how you ask it. How do you prime it? What sort of context do you give it? What goals do you give, etc. So I can elaborate on the prompting later on the presentation. But now we're gonna do another scenario. Okay, we're not gonna read everything, but I created a fictitious scenario, but that has enough truth in it to be interesting. Okay, here you go. So AOD, Archipelago of Design, is looking at expanding their team. All right, they want to hire 2 new person. So I asked ChatGPT, okay, to create 2 personas of future rockstar employees. Okay, and here's the context on my organization AOD. Okay, so I went on the website. Some version, they can browse the web. So the one I have right now is ChatGPT 4 standard. So I cannot have it browse the web, but I just cut and paste AOD mission value and all the good stuff here, right? And the services just from okay. And from there, they created persona, Eva Jensen. Background, skills, values, motivation. And I could have gone further and asked them, like, what can you show me Eva Jensen's CV? And it's going to make up a CV. But again, it's in the idea of basically you're designing your way into a hiring project, right? So persona number 1, persona number 2, Jamal Harris. Leadership. Okay, good. Then I was like, yeah, create an extra one with different skill set, right? So then you get Dr. Sofia Martinez. So again, then again, the concept of, when we do design, you play game or you play character, you impersonate people, right? So you can do the same with ChatGPT. So I asked the ChatGPT, you're a professional headhunter and a talent manager. You are mediating a heated debate between two AOD co-founders. So the BB and MM, but that's just random letters. BB wants to increase the scope and reach of the organization, make it more self-sustainable with more predictable, full mistake, So it's not a problem if you make tons of mistakes while you type. With more predictable revenue, while MM wants to focus on research, staying on the cutting edge. AOD can only hire 2 new staff. Let me read the mediated debate between BB and MM, right? So here's the first round of debate. I'm not going to play this one out, but I didn't like it. It was right? It was meh. So I was like, good start. Please write a longer, more in-depth conversation in 4 parts. Be specific and technical. Think step by step. This is a kind of a priming technique to having the ChatGPT be more, And after each part, I will ask you to self-reflect on the conversation. So first, we could play that one. Okay, how do you feel about that? So I'm going to play HH, which is the headhunter. Philippe, if you want, you can play BB. And Michael, you can play MM. But you're going to see, like, it's pretty good stuff. So thank you both, BB and MM, for trusting me to help mediate this discussion. I've taken some time to understand your concern. BB, you're keen on making AOD more self-sustainable and increasing its scope and reach. On the other hand, MM, you believe in maintaining our commitment to research and staying on the cutting edge, correct?
Yes, that's right. I'm concerned about the long-term financial stability of our organization. We need to diversify our revenue streams and broaden our client base.
And while I understand BB's concerns, I fear that an excessive focus on expansion could detract from our core strength, our cutting-edge research and innovation. That's what sets us apart from the rest.
I see both of your points, and I believe that they are not mutually exclusive. A sustainable organization can continue to innovate and focus. Researcher doesn't necessarily imply financial instability. The challenge lies in achieving a balance and aligning. So we agree. Self-reflection. So that's cool. So now you're asking the ChatGPT to take a 4th person point of view. So there's 3 characters there, right? That are being played by the AI. Now you're asking it to take even a step back from those 3 characters and self-reflect. And this initial part of I aim to set the stage for a construction dialogue. I validated both BB, starting at both point of view, blah, 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 encouraging. Bon. Part 2, exploring the option. Given our agreement on the need of balance, let's brainstorm some possibility. BB, could you share your thought on how you envision increasing our scope and sustainability specifically?
Okay, I don't know what's going to make me say, but yeah, go for it. Certainly, I think we need to leverage our unique value proposition in new markets, perhaps even international ones. We could also create additional revenue streams, perhaps by offering new services or products based on our existing expertise.
Excellent point, BB and MM. Could you share your thought on how we can maintain our cutting edge position in the market while accommodating growth?
Absolutely. I think we need to continue investing in our R&D and ensure we are attracting top talent in our field. Additionally, we could establish partnerships with academic institutions or other research bodies to help us stay at the forefront of innovation.
Thank you both. So I'm going to skip a bit. Okay. So now part 3, I'm merging the vision. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. And you see, like, exactly, BB. And then R&D innovation manager. So it's not even one of the persona that I asked him to. So he created one, right? It was not one of them. So we're just going to read the self-reflection. In this section, I introduce the concept of hiring two distinct roles that could work in tandem to achieve the co-founder's vision. By proposing an R&D, we address a specific concern of each, ensuring, okay. Next plan, I'm going to skip. Okay. Then what I asked them to do, can you take another approach for part 3? Let's call it part 3B. That's it. So basically, I want a different conversation for the part 3. So I'm zooming in, right? And I want another part 3. So the part 3 just like, it was the merging the vision. Okay. So now reframing the vision. I didn't ask. You come up with design wording on its own, but that's what it does. That's what it is. So reframing the vision. Okay. We could read this one. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's quite interesting. Let's consider that an alternate one where we approach these two visions not as a separate entity, but two sides of the same coin. We would involve finding individuals with unique skill set that intersect both these areas.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sounds interesting, but can you elaborate more on how this would look?
Certainly, BB. For instance, consider a role that we could call innovation strategist. This person will be tasked with identifying and pursuing growth opportunity in the new market, which align with your vision, BB. However, their focus would especially be on opportunity that allow us to apply and further our cutting-edge research, aligning with your bond. So he comes up with a second role, which is operational excellence lead. Okay. This would focus on streamlining our operation and creating efficiency. A lean, effective operation can both increase our financial sustainability and free up more resources for research. Yeah, sure. Okay. Then self-reflection. Okay. Now I ask it, write 3 arguments for and against part 3 versus part 3B. Then make your best attempt to make a part 3C that would consider the strongest argument. You see how you can play indefinitely with this? And I'm not going to go more, but in the end, argument for part 3, argument part 3 against, argument 4, and then consolidating the vision. So in the end, the 2 persona, and I could show you, okay, live, okay? I'm going to ask him to create a detailed persona of this person with CV. Create a detailed persona of the, include his / her CV. And I use, by the way, I'm using GPT 3.5 for the demo because it's way faster. It's a bit less good at complex reasoning, but it's way faster. So for the demo, I thought it would be better. And the conversation would have been much richer in the GPT-4. And there are ways also that each part, I could say, let's say you like part 2, I would say expand like part 2, like make a longer disc, you know what I mean? Part 2. Well, so here's your Jordan, Samuel, MBA operation, back in science. You see, like, you get, like, obviously you're not going to find exactly that, but just the fact that you can create something like that, like, which is basically free. So to sum up this portion, I would say, the cost of ideation is trending towards 0. Right? And the same for synthesis, right? And so in the divergent and convergent thinking, or, if you want to use the double diamond, But the idea is that if you take the movie analogy, in today and more in the future, there's not going to be any script writer or actors. We're all going to be directors. So doesn't mean the creative process is going to go away. It means that again, you can do a lot of work just yourself or even a team, like individually. And then when you get back together, basically you increase productivity to a crazy level. And so in a nutshell, what the groan zone, for those who are familiar with the model, that's the bit that, not even now or in the foreseeable future is going to be automated, between the divergent thinking or the creative process towards the convergent thinking and solution finding, just in between, sometimes referred to the groan zone. This is where the human intellect will continue to shine for the time being. But so, and any feedback on that, and after the feedback, I'll leave it to you, Nathan, and I will process the other respondent answer while you show yourself. So, any feedback so far, a question or your thoughts on this?
Well, I have a couple of stuff to say, but I'll let others contribute before Gus.
Okay.
I really appreciate this talk, Gus. I've been playing with AI in my own work. I'm wondering if you could. So you just said, and it just, as you said it, it just struck me the profundity of what you were saying. The cost of ideation is approaching zero. Can you unpack some of the dimensions? I'm kind of reeling from that realization. It's just something I hadn't quite approached yet in my own thinking about it. And I'm wondering if you could unpack that for us a bit.
So basically, I'm a finance/economic nerd, right? So so the reason why we're doing YouTube exists and it's free, right, is basically the cost of anything will trend towards its cost of production. And when you scale, especially with this, the cost of production to run this back in the background is trending towards zero. So this is the what. This is not the so what, right? This is what's happening. So the so what of it, my God.
The implications of that are quite profound.
Sorry?
The implications of it are quite profound. And I'm just playing a lot of angles through my mind.
Yeah. So my favorite analogy is in the early part of let's say in the 1950s, to be a musician, right? You had to be an artisan, mastering your body and your tool, right? You had to be you had to have musical intelligence. Mm-hmm. You had to have a lot of things, right? And just with the digitalization, it has opened the door. So now creators, they don't have to be artisan anymore, but they still need the music intelligence, correct? Like DJs, for example, whether you like it or not. I mean, they're making music and they're making money, right? So and they're not an artisan, right? So you kind of democratize. You took barriers away to be able to create stuff.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a really helpful metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of the next step, and where the discussion gets weird is once you combine the large language model like AI with state-of-the-art robotic, what Boston Dynamics is doing, or Tesla even, and you know what I mean. So that I don't want to dwell there, because even though it's not that far away, it sounds so like science fiction. I'm going to lose you guys. Yeah. Okay, good. Nathan, over to you. I'm going to stop sharing.
Well, if nobody else want to share something, what the first exercise really made me think about the best answer model. I don't know if you're aware of it. It was developed by a prof at the University of Toronto. He basically categorized people into 4 categories when it comes to creative problem solving. So the generator, so basically what you're doing with ChatGPT, generating a lot of potential ideas, solutions. The conceptualizer, so that's more like a big concept, and the implementer and optimizer. And I went to a design activity in Denmark, and the facilitator started with distributing a sort of big questionnaire like you just did, and it really allowed to actually map, among the 50 people who were there, who would be more in those specific categories, so that you could develop very diverse team, right? And I think that we could do the same with those archetypes, right? And then if you would have, let's say, the entire JCSP, 100 students, and then you make sure that you've got for each, instead of having a syndicate based more on the services and visible diversity, then you have the diversity based on the design.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's amazing. The other thing, what was really making me think about is that I think it's a very good tool for thinking experiments, right? It's not doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but at least it can make you think about elements that you would not have to think otherwise, right? So that's good. Like, or perhaps before going into a negotiation, you can actually simulate a negotiation with anybody, right? So again, doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but at least it may cover some of your blind spots that you may you could have. And I mean, it's a great question. Like, if we need to hire somebody, like what sort of profile like we may not have considered that, and that may exist because our knowledge is so limited. For instance, I'm a professor. Like I don't know about all the profiles out there for strategic innovation and all those things. I'm good with my books, and I think it's there's a lot of potential in there. So thanks for that, Gus.
Okay, I think it's my turn. I'm going to take it a little bit different than Gus, less interaction and more about sort of what I've discovered over this past year of using AI on this JCSP Masters of Defense Studies course. So I got into this in November timeframe when it first came out to the public, when ChatGPT 3.5 just sort of came out. And during this whole year, I used it for every single class that I was in at CFC. Just to sort of experiment and figure out what was going on. And as I experimented, I explored what this could mean for academia and for professional military education. And I turned this experiment into my final paper. This is what I focused on the entire time. I'll send you that paper if you're at all interested. But if not, I'll take you through it anyways. My thesis is this. What are the implications of IA in professional military education? How does AI change the landscape? Should we embrace it? Should we prohibit it? Does it threaten the desired outcomes of the course? Does it threaten critical thought? And in the paper, I discuss other historically disruptive technologies, because this is not the first one. Socrates critiqued the written word. Said it would ruin our memories, would ruin the transition of knowledge. The printing press similarly challenged the Catholic Church. The calculator challenged mental math in the 1970s, and now AI is threatening academia yet again, it would seem. And all of these technologies disrupted norms in education, but as we embraced them, the landscape shifted. And it allowed us to think faster and think deeper. And I think that's what AI offers us today, is the ability to make faster connections and the ability to think deeper about the problems we face. So in my paper, as I unpacked a few different experiments, and if you guys click on that, you can see at the very end, I have 4 or 5 annexes where I show in ChatGPT how I defeated some of the CFC assignments that were given to me, simply with some creative prompts. And I was able to help organize my thoughts and do that. So one is essay writing and synthesis. And I'm not saying any of these are good assignments, by the way. It doesn't mean that just because you can get ChatGPT to defeat an assignment doesn't mean that you did a good job. You're not getting an A+ on everything. But at the end of the day, you're going to still be able to complete the assignment. So I did that for essay writing, and essay writing is probably some of the easiest ways of doing it. You can type into ChatGPT, write me a paper on whatever, military leadership, and it is going to come up with a ton of stuff that is bang on, because that is a really bad assignment. And my core argument, and I'm going to come back to it a few times, is ChatGPT is not a threat to academia. It's a threat to bad professors and bad assignments. So if you give a bad assignment, ChatGPT is your best friend. But if you give a good assignment and it allow the students to do a creative way of presenting it, or even going back to some other traditional views like viva voce, having people defend their thought live, having them only work in class, it doesn't mean you have to cut out and prohibit ChatGPT at all. It just means that you're forcing your students to think. So that's for sure. So I talked about essay writing, organizing seminars, creating activities and assignments that encourage reflection. It's really good, as Gus talked about summarizing readings, and that's what I used for, because for every class at CFC that we have here, we have about, I'd say, probably 50 to 80 pages of reading each night, and that's just impossible. And the professors know that that's impossible. So it becomes your friend. If I can say, do a quick prompt in 200 words, explain what this guy's talking about, it is very good at doing that. And then I will refine the prompt even more, saying, give me 3 interesting things to say in class about this. And then I red team it and I say, give me the counter perspective to those 3 interesting things, citing examples. And then I get my contribution marks from my professor, and everybody's happy. It works good in some things, and sometimes it's not good. And sometimes as Gus said, it hallucinates, and it's very confident in telling you the wrong answer. And that's why this is a really good tool for graduate level studies, because you have to know what you don't know. You have to know enough to know that when it's wrong. So when I was exploring this a little bit with some friends who are doing their undergraduate degrees, sometimes they don't know when it's the wrong answer, and they'll confidently give you the wrong answer, which is where it's problematic. And that's where the critical thought is at stake. But if you know enough to be dangerous, then it can be your best friend. So yeah, I even use this in operational planning a little bit, when they give us like 1,000, like on an OPP cycle or operational planning process cycle, they give you a huge read-in package where it gives you like 5 different country studies, and you're expected to make all these connections. If you feed that large data set into ChatGPT and say, okay, find connections for me, find where crime in these 2 countries is linked. Who are the key players? How might we be able to benefit from coordination between these players? Incredible. It's really, really good at that. And yeah, then I did this. I even used this ChatGPT in the comp study, BB's operational design comp study. So I loaded up all of the archetypes that he gave us into ChatGPT as a data set. And I said, make me a new archetype that is about a guy using AI. And I spat it out, and I'll put it in the chat as well. And it came up with this. And I had to tweak it a little bit. Oh, it's not letting me. Oh, maybe it is. Okay, it's up, I think. Yeah, so anyways, if you guys can you guys open that up? Andrew, can you see it? Okay, sweet. Yeah, so this is the AI Maestro, or the IA Innovator, and it goes through the whole thing, and it's mindset, inaction, approaching problems, traits, positive, negative, catchphrase, tools. 5 seconds, it was done. And it wasn't a good product at 5 seconds. I had to spend another few hours on making it nice and making sure that it actually made sense, and deleting the things where it was clearly hallucinating. And then I went on Dolly and Stable Diffusion, and I had it make up some artwork for me. This took an hour of a few iterations of making sure that it looks pretty. But again, in the span of about 2 hours, this assignment was done. And I think I contributed something. And I think this is the future a little bit, because I was able to take some of the stuff that I knew, taking the expectations the professor had of his assignment, merge those together using this large data set into something that is creative, useful, and made me think a little bit. So I thought that was interesting. But I want to talk about a few examples that I used last week. So we mentioned that at the Canadian Forces College last week, we just did a design week. And I took the opportunity during that design week to do a few experiments with my syndicate because I was the facilitator of my group. And for the first experiment, what I did is we did stakeholder mapping and futures wheel. And what I did is I had 2 control groups. So I had 2 groups of 4 students, and their job was to identify as many stakeholders for a problem. And in another class, identify as many futures as I could for going through the futures wheel. And then in another group away from that control group, I had one guy who was really good at AI, ChatGPT, and he was allowed to use ChatGPT. And so it was like human power versus AI power. And as a question to you guys, what do you think the results were as far as like depth of examples, number of examples? Who do you think got the better results out of that experiment?
Probably humans, but the time frame was 10 times, 100 times.
Interesting. Gus, do you have any thoughts? Okay.
I would say AI because it allowed most likely the group to go in a way more divergent way than without it.
Yeah. So that's really good. So we're talking about diverging. Again, these are all military officers who come from very similar backgrounds. So they are all thinking the same way, right? Get a group of 4 white guys that are middle-aged in the room. They're going to come up with very similar examples. The one guy with AI was able to come up with many more examples immediately. And so what I'm saying is it's not necessarily that the group of 4 humans wouldn't come up with it. It's that this other guy was able to come up with it extremely fast. So it speeds the thinking. So the time that he wasn't using in compiling, who are the stakeholders here? Let me list out 20. If you say ChatGPT, give me 50 stakeholders who could relate to this problem, it will give you in 5 seconds, and then you can spend your time going deeper into those and finding the connections. So it's making your creative process much faster, which is really helppful. Now, Andrew, to your point, the humans, when they were giving it, they were actually able to go deeper much faster because they had more context. So the answers were much more fulsome. But when it's just coming up with like a rote list of who could be involved with this, the large data set makes those connections at a crazy fast rate, where it would take a group of 4 people maybe an afternoon to come up with the same amount of connections. ChatGPT can do that very quickly. So that was one of the first one I did. And the second experiment that I did was really interesting too. It's just sort of what Gus described as red teaming. So I designed a pitch assignment where the students would have to write 2 versions. First, they have to write their argument, and they get ChatGPT to critique their argument, and then rewrite the argument, and then do it again. So it's like an iterative approach about like, I want you to argue with me, and I want you to test where the holes in my argument are. So I'm going to give you, this is my hypothesis, this is my problem statement. Is this proper? Or what am I not thinking about? So when you ask it, like, what am I thinking about? What am I not thinking about? And sort of red teaming your own stuff, you can get a lot more, you can get a lot of good information out of there. And I thought that was really interesting. So using that design week was actually a really good way. I had a lot of, how do I say it? I had a lot of Luddites, a lot of people who were not good at technology in my group. And it was really just sort of opening their eyes to the possibilities of what was going on. I had the privilege this year of actually talking to, like, because the Canadian military is struggling through this too. The Canadian Defense Academy is struggling with what is their policy on ChatGPT and making this available to the students or not. So I was able to sit with a group of professors at RMC that were coming up with a policy. And when I did, and I gave them a demonstration very similar to what Gus showed you, but I was showing them, okay, this is the activity description in CFC Learn. Like this is what the syllabus says of the assignment. I'm going to put it into ChatGPT right now, and I'm going to defeat your assignment in 30 seconds. And it was just like minds blown, like jaws dropped, like this is the end of my job. When really going back to my finding is that that's not the case. ChatGPT can defeat a very poorly designed problem statement, but there are creative ways of doing it. And if we harness the benefits of speeding our thought and deepening our thought and spending the time on deepening the creative ideas that ChatGPT can give us, that can lead to a totally different landscape. So the end of my paper, it says we need to fully embrace it. We need to not reject this, and we need to get on board with it because no one is slowing down for this. And it does not replace critical thought whatsoever. And if anything, it deepens it. So as a challenge to professors and people who are scared of this, get on board with this, because you can unharness a lot of potential in your students that you might not be able to do it. And you're going to get left behind. You're going to become irrelevant if you don't get on board with this anyways. Things are changing, and that can be scary. And that can be scary for people who enjoy the status quo, people who are holding on to old, even sometimes structures of power. Adapt. If you don't adapt, you're going to get left behind. So yeah, that's sort of my conclusion. I gave you my papers there. I gave you the AI thing I got, and I'm actually, Dr. Beebe, you prompted me on this. I'm sitting on the academic selection committee next week to hire the next guy. I'm one of the guys, so I'm going to use IA in that and see how that might help me hire the next CFC professor. So if you guys got any questions, great. I love to talk about this, but I wanted to keep it also a little bit short and a little bit sweet, keeping it to my key findings. So if you guys got questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Nathan, do you mind trying to just show roughly? Maybe we could do a live demo on creating an image with the I can with Midjourney.
I'm not a huge Midjourney guy. I do use a program called Playground. Are you a good Midjourneyer, Gus?
No, but I'm log into your thing, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show something interesting with. You know the question earlier. So, what are the implications that ideation goes to zero, like cost goes to zero? So, what I'm gonna show you, if I can share the screen. I'm not that great with Zoom. So, share. How do I do this now? Share screen. Okay. There you go. So I'm just going to show you while Nathan is so do you see Lexica?
We do not see your screen yet. I don't see it anyways. Okay. There we go. Gus, we can see Lexica.
Okay. So what this is a library of AI generated image that were somehow curated. When I say somehow, is if you like it, you can put it there. You know what I mean? Like it's not there's not a committee here that, but the cool thing too is that you can see the prompt it used.
Yeah.
So here's what they wrote: a cute and tiny slot captain inside a space shuttle control cockpit. You see? And these are the 4 images they came up with. Yeah, you see there's a mistake here. But this is good. So basically, do you want to, someone wants to try to query it so it doesn't exist? And any image you'd like to see? We're not going to generate it. We're just looking at a database of existing. Yeah.
I got one.
Yeah.
A triptych in the style of Hieronymus Bosch of Barton Street in Hamilton.
Okay, so Bosch, like that?
Bosch.
Yeah, Bosch.
Even just painting. You don't necessarily need to say triptych.
Oh, yeah. I wrote Bosch and Street. Okay. But now I didn't generate this. This was generated by other user. So, that's where I always start. Okay. That was a tough one, but let's say,
sorry, that's been floating around in my head for a few days.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Let's say a bear drinking beer. Okay. Someone thought about that, I guess. And then create all of this.
No, it's good, Gus, because like we always have when we teach design, like visualization, I think is extremely powerful in design because it's a sort of a tool that we forget. Like we are good when we're kids for drawing and trying to visualize and represent what we see. And for a lot of people, it's difficult to recover. So I think that using these visual generator model can be a good way to retrieve.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what I like in this, I'm not generating anything now. In this case, I'm looking through a database. But to me, that's the first step I use because if I like the vibe of this, I can look how. Okay, there's not much in that. Okay, explore this style. So it's the amount of picture that were created in the past 6 months. Like, sorry for the language, but like, I mean, anyways, over to you, Nathan. I just wanted to show the database.
Yeah, no, I could show you a little bit of what I've done too. Let me just do this real quick. Screen. Okay. Can you guys see my screen a little bit?
Yep.
Okay, beauty. So let me go to the AI architect. Yeah, so again, you can do so much with this stuff. Like you can start off with the stuff that you want. I made some photos of myself. You can upload like a picture of yourself. So I threw myself in an old like portrait of like a king in a coronation. You can steal other people's stuff and just continue to ideate. I'll see if I can find out where I did. Yeah. So again, for the I Maestro, I stole some other people's stuff, and then I said, okay, now I want more pictures. Maybe a guy doing a symphony. Trying to understand that. So like BB, as you guys continue to do archetypes, I don't know how much you're paying people to do artwork for you, but this is very, very accessible to you for very, very cheap. So the ideation, and there's some legal stuff around there, but from what my understanding right now is like this is the wild, wild west, and anything you create on these sites is yours. Yeah. But yeah, if you guys have questions for anything that I said, happy to answer them now, and if not, that's cool too.
Yeah, I mean, of course, personally, I don't think we can, like any sort of new technology, any attempt at trying to controlling it is most likely going to fail. The only point I would like to, see what you think is more on critical thinking, because I believe that critical thinking, creative thinking is not something that is a given, that something that you need to practice continuously. It's like working out, right? Now, are you not afraid that if we rely too much on AI, like we're gonna lose this critical thinking, or perhaps the next generation will not even have the critical thinking background pre-existing to be able to
yeah, I see what you're saying. Like I see AI as a tool in the toolbox, like a calculator or a printing press, where it's going to aid people in critical thinking. It's not going to be a replacement for critical thinking. And again, it can be a replacement, again, if the problems that we're trying to solve are very basic or something that's been solved before, or like a picture that it's already been painted. Yeah, that'll be very easy to do. But the things that are going to be mind-blowing to us are the problems that we have to explore. And there's no substitute for human creativity. There's no substitute. Like AI can repeat a lot of the stuff that they find in the data sets and good at synthesizing words that are commonly found together based on probability and logic. That can be done for sure. But there's no substitute for human creativity. And I'd stand by that.
I kind of don't agree exactly.
Love it.
With Nathan. So what I would say is it depends. You need to put that. So we're following a succession of sigmoid curve of improvement. Let's say it's not improving linearly, right? So it's an exponential curve. And the thing is, by the time we lose the critical thinking, the problem, this is going to be the least of our problem. I mean, not the least of our problem, but I mean, the society will have changed so much that is, it's almost like a science fiction book, but I believe there's no limitation. To me, the way I see it is just a question of the time scale we're talking about. Okay, so if you were able to interview an ant on how they feel about our intellect, you know what I mean? Like, this is what we're trying to do right now. Like, if we project the capability in the next 10, 15 years, and we're from our simpleton view, where we're like an ant trying to think about quantum physics, right? That's so that's I'm a believer in the singularity. And I think it's going to be great until it's not, or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. To my family that asked me the same question, the best way, I guess, to share my humble perspective, which is not better than anyone out there, is like I give a 50-50 flip of a coin, like for Terminator 2 to happen, right? Like 50-50. Like, to be frank, there's as much good reason why this is a prophetic movie that it's not gonna happen. So I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's
where I'd like you guys to think, is the following. So Philippe, I've talked about the large language model right now. I've seen the chat. They are mostly trained on internet data. Okay, so they build kind of a general reasoning and intelligence and some kind of a knowledge base. But where it gets really, really cool is when you take this model and then you train it locally with your data. Okay, that's where it becomes scary, because imagine, Philippe, that every single thing you've ever said or wrote, okay, in your classes or in your work, you recorded all your lesson and you gave access to all your email. So I see not a futuristic, but in the next horizon 1 to 5, 6 years, we're gonna have personal AI, which is kind of a digitalized representation of your own experience and knowledge. So, the Armageddon scenario aside, I would see, let's say, you, Philippe, being able to charge, let's say, people to do consulting work with your ego, your digital ego. And this is somehow exists already, where someone has basically transcribed all the big YouTube channel. They transcribed all of it. And you can basically have whoever podcaster you like that's popular enough, you can have a conversation with him now, based on all the, let's say, hours and hours of video he's done. You can have a conversation with their digital ego today.
Yeah, and imagine like in this future that's not so far away, where like this service provider is trying to actually sell his own service, and at some point the clients will say, no, I want to have your virtual self. Like he or she's way more performant than you. So yeah,
I don't want the meat version of Philippe. Like it's
yeah, that could happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrea, so that you had a question in the chat, you want to ask it live?
Yeah. So the question I had was, how do we predict, or how do we predict the use of AI or even ChatGPT in the use of CAF or security operations? And I keep thinking back to, in a briefing where we're discussing an investigation, do we have an assistant, an AI assistant running in the background, listening to everything we're saying, sucking up all the information, and then being that creative assistant to say, okay, here are your probable avenues of things you need to explore, or have you thought about this? It does scare me, to be honest. But, in the immediate future, I think that's what's going to happen for our operational side.
I like being on this course has really opened my eyes to how slow, and I don't want this to become a big conversation about the CAF, but like, we are not ready for this. Like, there are a few people that are really interested in personally, but are the levers of government and the CAF work so slow. We have problems with stakeholders at the top who are not embracing this, that it's going to be a long time before we can actually operationalize this in a big way. So I think it's going to be non-state actors who really are able to weaponize this before we are able to. And I really hope the US is doing it, because I think that's going to be our huge partner there. I did post a little video in the chat there. I don't know if you've seen the Slaughterbot video before. It sort of goes through a Black Mirror type alternate reality where all of our data is harvested, and then people with small drones can deliver precision guided munitions right to your forehead based on your likes on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and just do crazy terrorism that's very cost effective. So not very ChatGPT related, but very AI related, and kind of scary. I really appreciated the Black Mirror stuff for things to ideate about this, to think about alternative futures. It's very helpful. We had a really interesting presentation in this class about one of those, and we need to be thinking about this. We need to stay creative and imagining these things so that we can actually get on top of them. But I think the future is bleak in the near term anyways, at least while you and I are still in the military.
So yeah, I'm a civilian now, but I spent 18 years in the CAF. So a bit of perspective, maybe I can share, is to me, our only way to not to survive, but I mean is to embrace it, right? So my fear would be that to be cautious, we end up being more worse, right? Like, in a nutshell, right? Like, the best tool to prevent AI attack is to have an AI fire, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like the equivalent, but on the, you know what I mean? Like, so you need AI to protect you, right? Because you're too afraid of AI, then you have nothing to protect you. Right. So my fear is, out of conservatism, we end up being in a worse place. And the analogy, so always think back when you think about AI, is the human brain. We're not trained to think exponentially. Like, we're not trained. When you ask an average person, anyone, if you put $100 at a compounded interest for 35 years at 5%, like, how much does it make? No one, it's not natural, right? So the analogy I would make to answer your question, Andrew, like, imagine a world where, like, how much time did it take for, let's say, the government or DND to integrate computers compared to the civilian side? So maybe there was a 5-year lag, right? But now we're an exponential function. So instead of 5 years, let's say it's 25 years. So what would have happened to CAF if we're 25 years late at adopting computer? This is the light version of what's ahead for us, right? Being out of phase, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, okay, right? But an exponential curve is, if it's 50 years, being late 4 years, it's the equivalent of late 100 years. You know what I mean? Because it's exponential. So,
I agree with you, and I think it's going to come down to forcing that change within our organizations. We're going to be forced to change, and I think that traditionally has been conflict that has forced the CAF or security institutions to change. But it does need to happen. I agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that picture sent, but that's something that you said, Gus, resonated with me. It's a picture of a tweet that said, "Who led the digital transformation of your company? Is it A, the CEO, B, the CTO, or C, was it COVID-19?" And I can say you for sure in the Canadian Forces, the only reason that we have these digital tools is because of a pandemic. And it wasn't because of any human. It was because we were forced to do these things by a pandemic. So it's really interesting to see. It's sometimes our best and our brightest aren't the path forward. And a lot of times we have those sacred cows or reasons why we shouldn't innovate or reasons why we can't break through, but we're forced into decisions that make us change. And I think those can be one of the best catalysts for change that are outside of any of our creativity. So.
Yeah, and on the positive side, like perhaps it's going to be a success, like because if let's say they didn't, move up the ranks and like all of his, future boss look at what he can do with AI, like I think success may, bring more success in the sense that there will be more and more demand for that type of profile of officers or who is proficient with AI, right? And there will be probably like professional development courses on becoming like a prompt engineer, like 1 week, for So yeah, I think it's coming again. I mean, it's rare are those who want to believe without seeing. So I think the more we can bring some key cases, example of how it can make a difference, I think the more you're going to create buy-in for.
And if I may add, Philippe, the one thing that's really cool about the AOD community is the same reasoning that led to creating technique for mediation, to think about, you know what I mean? All the techniques that were developed on human are 100% applicable with the AI. You know what I mean? So we're in a privileged space to really get the most out of this tech.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I'll have to leave you for a meeting, but that was fantastic. Please come back, blow us away again as you continue to explore with these AI technologies. And I was. You were so busy with life and all that, I could see that there was something happening, but now I really need to take the time to become a better prompt engineer this summer. It's going to be on the agenda, and let's see what we can get, and perhaps we could get a campfire where we only let our AI communicate after training them the entire summer. So again, that was awesome.